My dear brothers and sisters, we are continuing our Bible study on the book of Acts of the Apostles, and we had completed 14 chapters yesterday. So out of 28 chapters, just half is finished. And now we are entering into the 15th chapter. Before we speak about the 15th chapter, I would like to give you some background for this. Because in the 15th chapter, we are for the first time, we are going to reflect about the first ever Jerusalem Council, first council. Now we have so many councils in the history. The last council was Second Vatican Council. And the first council was Jerusalem Council. So what was the need of this Jerusalem Council? Why? The context, background, and the conclusion and the content of the Jerusalem Council. That is what we are going to read in this chapter. And before we speak about Jerusalem Council, let us see why did they need a Jerusalem Council? What was the need for a council then? Council means, normally councils are held summoned by the Pope, and it is attended by the most important people of the church, like the apostles and the elders, leaders, prophets, teachers, and the lay people and the representatives of different churches. Everyone come together, and that is how the councils are held. And then they pray and they pray discussion. So this is how they come to the conclusion of the theological disputes. So normally these councils are held once in a while to give the direction for the whole church, especially when there is confusions and disputes and certain theological issues. And the council is the one who is giving direction for the whole church. It is not one individual, but it is the council who gives the direction. So there is something special with the church. And now, what was the need of a Jerusalem Council? The main point of the Jerusalem Council was this. I already told you in the previous classes that there are two groups in the Christians, early Christians. Among the early Christians, there are two groups. One is the main group. That is, one is Jewish people who got converted to Christianity. The other group of people is the Gentiles who got converted to Christianity. And the Jewish people who got converted to Christianity, out of them, some of them, a very prominent ones, especially the Pharisees. Pharisees are the keepers of law, very strict followers of the law. Law means Old Testament. They are very strict followers of the law. And these Pharisees, they argued that we don't mind welcoming Gentiles into the Christianity. The Pharisees who got converted to Christianity, they argued. They said, we don't mind welcoming the Gentiles, but one problem. They should first get circumcised and become Jewish, and then they become Christians. This is the argument they had, because they believed Jewish religion is the chosen people of God. That is the special people of God. That is the beloved people of God. So if anybody wants to become Christian, they should become first Jewish and then become Christian. Only then you will be saved. That means, in order to be saved, they put two conditions. First is, they should become Jewish and then become Christian. Otherwise, you will not be saved. So this is the argument of some Jewish Christians who got converted to Christianity. The Pharisees, mainly Pharisees. But there are some other people like Peter, Paul, and Barnabas. They argued. Even Peter is a Jew. Paul is a Pharisee. He was, in fact, initially he was a Pharisee before he became a Christian. But still, they argued that Gentiles, when they become Christians, they don't need to become Jewish people. They just accept Jesus, have faith in Jesus. The faith in Jesus will cleanse them. But then Pharisees said, no, first they have to become Jewish and be cleansed and then become Christian. Then Peter and Paul and Barnabas said, no, the faith in Jesus is sufficient to heal and cleanse everyone from every uncleanness. They don't need to become Jewish people. So this was the big argument between two groups, a very prominent group. One is the Jewish converts. Many of the prominent Jewish converts, they stood for that idea. And many of the people, many other Jewish people like Peter, Paul and Barnabas, they all said it's not necessary to become, somebody need to become a Jewish first to become Christian. It's not necessary. They said the circumcision is no more needed. And they sticked on that. And there was a big dispute. And this dispute increased in such a way that one group started attacking the another church, another group, attacking not physically, but verbally. They started propagating, saying that these groups are wrong, they should be out, they should be punished, they should be disciplined. These people like Peter and Paul and Barnabas, they are teaching wrong things. So these arguments started in the church. And then the church decided, the church in the different places, they decided it should not be like this. There should be unity. We can't go on having theological disputes, especially on such a very important aspect of the church. Therefore, we need to have a solution for this. And as a result, the Jerusalem Council is summoned. So that is the background of a Jerusalem Council. If the Pharisees' argument is accepted, then there will be a problem. The Christianity will just become a Jewish sect. Because anybody wants to become Christian, first they have to become Jewish and then become Christian. That means it looks like a sub part of the Jewish community. Jewish religion's sub part. In fact, it is not like that. Therefore, Peter and Paul and Barnabas was completely against this idea that anybody wants to become a Christian, first they should become a Jewish and then become Christian. It cannot be acceptable. And they said, in order to become Christian, in order to be saved, you don't need to do anything. You don't need to cleanse yourself. Jesus will cleanse yourself. You don't need to become a Jewish and get cleansed and then become Christian. It is not needed. To have faith in Jesus alone, is sufficient to be cleansed and be saved. So this was the idea of Peter and Paul and Barnabas. And there is a big dispute happening in the church. So this is the background. Let us start reading this chapter 15 verse 1. Then certain individuals came down from Judea and were teaching the brothers. Certain individuals, they didn't mention who they are, but they came from most probably Jerusalem. From Jerusalem, most of them, and they are Jewish people, maybe Pharisees. Jewish certain individuals came down from Judea and they started teaching the brothers. The brothers means those who are baptized, maybe Gentiles, and they got baptized into Christianity. They said, unless you are circumcised. So these people, the Jewish people, the Jewish Christians, Jewish convert Christians, they came and told these Gentiles who are baptized. They said, first you should be circumcised and become Jewish and then become baptized and become Christian. Otherwise, you cannot be saved. So this is their teaching. Unless you are circumcised according to the custom of Moses, you cannot be saved. That means they were not ready to give up certain ideologies which they were holding on to. But at the same time, these Gentiles were also having some ideologies which they gave up and came to the Christianity. The same way, the Jewish people also have to give up some ideologies which they were holding as an idol should be given up, but which they were not ready to give up. So that was the initial problem of the Christians. That is the reason for the Jerusalem Council. That is why Peter, who is also a Jew, and Paul is also a Pharisee, said very clearly, just like they gave up all their past, the idols, you also have to give up your idols and become Christian. So you should not continue holding some ideas and say, oh, unless you become uncircumcised and become Jewish, you cannot be saved. That is a wrong idea, because salvation of Jesus is a free gift. It is not attained through your hard work. It is not attained through your circumcision. It is attained through the crucifixion of Jesus. It is a free gift. So it is not necessary to become a Jewish. This was the argument of Peter, Paul, Barnabas. Let's read. So, and after Paul and Barnabas had no small dissension and debate with them. That means they had a heated argument. Very serious argument. Paul and Barnabas and some of the others were appointed to go up to Jerusalem to discuss this question with the apostles and the elders. There was a big dispute between these certain people who came from Judea, who were arguing with the apostles Barnabas and Paul. And there was a heated dispute and debate. And as a result, the church in Antioch and Iconium and Lystra, and they came together and said, we need a solution. We can't go on like this. We are fighting between each other. We can't go on like this. We need a solution. Now the church in Antioch is a new church, but the head office, the headquarters of the Christianity is in Jerusalem. Then Jerusalem was the center. So they said, now we should go to Jerusalem and discuss with all the other apostles and discuss and come to a conclusion and then come back and teach everybody. So that is why this church in Antioch and the Lystra and Iconium, they came together and they selected 2 people to go to Jerusalem and clarify the things with the apostles and then come back and continue the teaching. And come to a conclusion. No more fighting with each other. So as a result, they selected Paul and Barnabas. This church in Antioch, they selected 2 people to go and find out the truth, the final solution. And Paul and Barnabas and some of the others were appointed to go. Not only Paul and Barnabas and some other important people in the local churches, they were appointed by whom? Appointed by the local community. The whole community as a community, they appointed Paul and Barnabas and some of the other people to go to Jerusalem to discuss this question with the apostles and the elders. There are so many apostles and elders. The other apostles like Peter and all the other apostles are there in Jerusalem. And the other elders, presbyters, that means priest, they are also there, and they have to go and discuss with them. And that is the first journey for the first council, Jerusalem council. Verse 3, we read, so they were sent on their way by the church. They were sent by the church, the local church. And as they passed through both Phoenicia and Samaria, they reported the conversion of the Gentiles and brought great joy to all the believers. On the way, what did Paul and Barnabas do? On the way, they reported in Phoenicia and Samaria, they told everyone, so many Gentiles are getting converted. They told all the Jewish people and every other Christians, they said, so many Gentiles are getting converted. And that made them a great joy to all the believers. All the believers, most of them are Jewish people. They were so happy that so many Gentiles are coming back. That means not all the Jewish people were against the Gentiles. Only some Pharisees were against the Gentiles being added without circumcision. But majority of the Jewish people who became Christians, they were happy that Gentiles are also becoming Christians. And verse 4, we read, when they came to Jerusalem, they were welcomed by the church and the apostles and the elders. So now all the 12 apostles, they all are there in Jerusalem. And when these Barnabas and Paul and the other people, they came to Jerusalem, they were welcomed by the church. The whole church welcomed them, especially apostles and the elders, and they reported all that God had done with them. And now Paul and Barnabas explained to them how God has done mighty miracles in Lystra, Iconium, Pisidia, and Antioch, and Phrygia, and all these places, how God has done mighty miracles and wonders, how God has added so many people to the Christianity, they explained to them. They reported. So this is a sign of giving a report to the headquarters. Even today it is continued. Every church and every community has to give a report to the head office. For example, every year from this retreat center, we give a report of how many people attend for the retreats and how many people come for the holy masses, and each week how many people are coming for the holy mass. Their report is asked by the diocese, and we send every year we send a report of how many people joined and how many people are coming, how many retreats are held and how many outreaches. All these reports are being sent to the diocese, and from diocese it is sent to the Rome and to the headquarters, that is Rome. And that is how the church is being done from the first century, and is still continuing the same process. And verse 5, let's read. But some believers who belong to the sect of the Pharisees, these are the group who are problematic. But some believers who belong to the sect of the Pharisees stood up and said, it is necessary for them to be circumcised and ordered to keep the law of Moses. They argued that it is necessary for them to be circumcised first and ordered to keep the law of Moses. They were so attached to the law of Moses. They didn't know Jesus is higher than Moses. Jesus is much higher than Moses. Moses is only a shadow and Jesus is the real one. When the real comes, the other one is nullified. So this is something very important, which they didn't know. And that was the reason the Jerusalem Council has to be summoned, and now they are going to have the Jerusalem Council. We will have the council peacefully tomorrow. Let them continue discussions.